issue of collateral damage on this series, and by that I mean that everyone that crosses Faraz, uh, and Neve Sultan's character as well, they're always experiencing, or rather, they're inflicting damage on those they love the most. So you really see on your character this season that she's dealing with all this mental fallout that would have never happened if really she wasn't with Faraz, if you really think about it, and they leave like a wake of destruction because they always get back to work. I mean, that's what Neve did as well. So.
Yeah, it's true. It's actually, it feels like, I mean, Faraz's job certainly is very difficult for a wife to have to deal with. But it's so interesting because I felt like it was Tamar's character that's been leaving a wake of destruction, poor thing, everywhere she goes. It's just destruction. And yeah, it was so part of the reason why I even took the part was we had dinner with Danny Sirkin, who's the director. Sean and he took us both to dinner before season 1. And he told me about what kind of a character it's going to be and how she's not an ornament like usual. A lot of these Middle Eastern, unfortunately, women that I see are just, they're just there for the husband or the children. And many of them are just, it's just not fun to watch. But this character was so intricate, and the fact that she was intricately involved in the plot in this wake of destruction, as you put it, that her husband's job gave her, was really fun to play. I don't know if fun is the word, but it was good. It was good to play.
I actually thought your best scene this season was when you go to the park for the first time and experience that kind of PTSD. And I think it's so interesting that really you're being manipulated again and you don't even realize it. And you trust this person and you go to the park and again, Faraz disappoints you. And I was wondering what it was like to play out that whole scene.
So I tell you what was great about that scene was it was so hot because it was in the middle of summer in Athens. And a few weeks earlier, they had these fires. So in this hot, and then as you know, when you're filming, and we were filming indoors for most of the day, you can't have any air conditioning running. Not that there was air conditioning, but they do have these portable coolers. So everything is shut off. We're in hijab, both Glenn Close and I, and the clothes you're wearing aren't breathing. So the clothes are already really thick. And then the hijab on top of it, that going out with her was, thank God, just to be out of that cramped space with 50 people and all the CO2 from everyone breathing out. So it was a lot of fun to be out in that situation.
I feel like your role has really expanded this season. Not that in the first season, in some way you were this like almost damsel in distress kind of character, this rescue character for Faraz, but you've really evolved since that. I feel like you already see that from the premiere that, you're having this completely different, or really different shades of the character where she can be unhappy with Faraz's actions and that he's not paying as much as attention to her, or that he's deciding to go back to work, even though she logically tells Glenn Close's character that, that she's aware that he needs to go back. But still there's that conflict, that logic versus emotion, and wondering if you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, I feel so fortunate that they wrote more for the character for season 2. And as an actor, it's such a blessing to be able to, just like you said, to be able to play moments that so much is going on. On the one hand, she's dealing with her love for her husband and the fact that she wants to keep his respect. I mean, even though this is a therapist and it's just she and I, but she loves him so much, and she doesn't feel comfortable putting him down in front of her. That even though she's a great therapist to her, she's still not that close. And she's just crazy about Faraz. I love that love story. I love the love story. But that, yeah, she is torn in that she is a woman who's completely ignored. She's like a housewife, and he is everything to her. And because of his job, she went through something that has messed her up psychologically, you know, with the PTSD and the agoraphobia. And it was just a lot of fun. Fun, again, is not the word. It was so difficult to do it, but this is why we do the work, is to take ourselves through these emotional and many times difficult landscapes and survive.
It's interesting you mentioned how he's everything to her, because I remember she says, you know, she saw him in this fragile state after the surgery, and he was pale, and she could barely recognize him. And I was wondering, in, you know, that whole moment, if, you know, Faraz is suddenly not this like superhuman kind of role model or hero anymore to that moment.
Yeah, and it does give another, it does give another layer, that now, along with everything that she has to go through, she's also worried about him and seeing him age. Because Faraz, I feel like, really, and especially you notice his limp, obviously, from season 1, the fact that he's aged and that she's confronted not only with her own mental state, but she's also confronted with his mortality, and therefore her own mortality. And it just gives another layer of just delicious, sad, human, what we go through in life.
I was surprised Naheed opened up so quickly to the therapist, and
It wasn't so quickly.
I thought it was a little bit.
No. Yeah, I know it seemed so quickly. It as I was crafting, so television, I think if this was a feature film, you would have seen that it would be, the editing would have been a little bit different. Because the way that we actually, the scene played out, the way it played out was not so quick. We took moments, but television needs to move, because there were so many different storylines, and it is a dramatic suspense thriller. So they were, because of the nature of it, the editing had to make it seem more quick than it was, but it wasn't. It didn't play out that quick when Glenn and I did the scene.
So there's like an extended cut somewhere?
No, unfortunately not. I think, you know, if it was a feature film, there could have been maybe a director's cut or an actor's cut, but there isn't, unfortunately. I mean, this is as actors, you know, we don't really have agency, and it's such a collaborative thing that you do your best. If this was theater, you would have seen how long it took before I fell for Glenn or her character.
Do you find it interesting that you're kind of ultimately like a counterpart to Milad? I mean, Milad's forced to murder, you're forced to take on this person, this invader into your home, and it's all because, you know, you're connected to these dangerous people who pull you in with like romance. But
that's so interesting. I never thought of myself as a counterpart to Milad, but now that I think of it, you're so right, because Milad and Tamar and Faraz and Naheed, these are the 2 love stories. So yes, absolutely, I would be a counterpart. Thank you for that. I'm going to think about that more now. But it is, and it's the love stories that make it so much more than just a thrilling car chases and, that type of suspense. That's what really gives it the yumminess for
How do
me.
you think she decides to make that whole dinner, that elaborate dinner? Was that some kind of way to get into his heart, or I mean, I know she says she's apologizing, but it seems so
I think it
extravagant.
was, yeah, I think it's because of the guilt. I think because if it's the guilt of, here's someone that you love so much, and she is very aware of how he loves her so much. She's aware, as I said, of his mortality. He's limping, he's getting older, he's not well, he's not looking well himself. And that we as women, I have a feeling, we feel guilty. We feel like that even if we're going through something that's horribly traumatic, we have a tendency to feel like we need to nurture as opposed to put our heaviness onto the people that we love. And so she's been very heavy. And but she's not a narcissist. So at the same instances, I'm sure that she has been in her depression and anxiety and misery. She's also been observing that what her husband's going through, seeing her so miserable, that I feel like it was to say thank you and to say I'm sorry and I love you, and to want to take some of the weight off of his shoulders.
Do you think Nahid's enraged in the first episode more because he's going back to work on behind her back because he's still pursuing Tamar, or mainly because he's going to work for the, a certain somebody that comes in her home?
Yeah, I think she's enraged because it's like, oh, more of this again. And I think the fact that, like, what is more important than you having a brain tumor and going to have surgery? I mean, I know people who have surgery on, and not to scare people of surgeries, but on a tiny little minor surgery, you have to sign pieces and pieces of paper saying, yes, I might die under anesthesia. So surgery is already a major thing. And then it's a brain tumor. They're going into her head. She's terrified. And to see that even in such an instance, he chooses his work over her. And I think that that's where that from that moment on, it's like, okay, this is no longer okay for her.
Do you think at least she hopes to change Faraz, and that's part of the pull of the romance, but as usual, he's never going to change?
Yeah, I think I have a feeling they've been together long enough that those thoughts of I might change him, I have a feeling after about 10 years that those thoughts are gone, and this feels like a over 20-year type of a marriage. That I don't know if she ever thinks that she's going to change him. I think she really loves him for what he is. But what's interesting about Faraz is that the character that he plays, there is actually, and I'm sure that the writers weren't thinking of this when they wrote Faraz, but he is we have a Persian mythological character called Rustam. And Rustam was, in Farsi, we call him a Pahlavan. He's a warrior. And he's a warrior that was so loyal to his king that he ends up killing his own son. Granted, he didn't know that this was his son, but his son was like the general of an enemy army that he ended up killing. But Rustam is such an honorable character because of the fact that his loyalty for his king isn't, it's not because his king is some man, but that king represents the happiness and thriving and well-being of the women and children and people of his nation. So that's why he's so loyal. And with Faraz, it's the same thing. And I have a feeling that when Nahid married Faraz, it was with that in mind, that she respected him so much that he is that type of a loyal character, that it's so important to him to protect his homeland and protect the people of his homeland. That
No, go ahead.
that I think that that's part of the love story for her, that this is not just a man that I love and I, was attracted to, but this is someone who is a protector, not just of me and this household or family, but of the nation that I'm from. So, and then when it came time to, as with her going off into having her brain surgery, or, the tumor in her brain, now she felt like, oh my goodness, so if I'm dying and I really need you and the nation really needs you, you're going to choose not me. And so I feel like that's what's driving some of her internal questions maybe now about her relationship. Though she still loves him, she's still crazy about him, and that's her man.
Did you review something in particular for that walking in the park? Because I think that's the most vulnerable you look in the whole series, despite the fact that he had the surgery in the first scene. The way you walk there's like a certain, I can't really describe, you just see it. It just seems like this weakened person, and like, Glenn Close is kind of driving you, pushing you there, and you just feel it.
Really, I'm so glad to hear you say that. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm visualizing it from what you described to me, and from what I remember that day. I worked on it a lot. As with I'm one of those actors who over prepares and prepares and prepares, and I remember with that scene, as I was preparing for it in LA in my own home, what was terrifying me was the idea that I'm going to be walking next to Glenn Close, who during the preparation I hadn't met yet, and I was so scared. And then now I was actually walking next to Glenn Close. I wonder if that maybe helped my fear and awe and pinch me of walking next to such an incredible actor. She's really good. She's such an icon. I think that my internal fear of who I was acting with helped the situation to make it read as fear of, the agoraphobia and coming out for the first time.
I saw her at Build a few years ago, and she brought her dog. I always remember that. Because immediately,
yeah,
well with the Build.
yeah,
it fits so well.
yeah.
I was wondering if you prepared much differently than you did in the first season, or if you have like really a staple of, like something you get up in the morning and you really lock into the character, or any character really, as an actor.
No, I consider myself so fortunate because I have a creative partner of mine. His name is Hitoshi Inoue, and we make films together, and he is such a brilliant director, as well as, he does visual effects, and he does everything. He does everything with film, but he's my partner as creatively. I'm married, but so to have him as a partner to work on scenes together is such a great fortune. Also, he's really great. Like, I'm not very good digitally, and he's such an amazing researcher. So he was able to pull up just hundreds of videos about PTSD and agoraphobia. And so I just watched over and over and over again. And by watching real people going through it, not like actors acting it, but real people going through it, and you notice the way people breathe and the way their eyes look. And so it really helped to be able to dive into the character for season 2. And it was very different than season 1. the preparation of it was very different, because in season one, she didn't have these problems.
One of the things I really love about the series is everybody's such a gray shaded character. It doesn't. I mean, I know Tamar is the hero of the show, but it still feels really realistic that they never really present either side as necessarily like purely good or purely evil or anything like that. And they really try to make it look, like each side is trying to get one over the other, but it doesn't necessarily look that one is this devil and one's the angel or anything.
Exactly. I love that about this team. I mean, and I tell you something, if it was a show where they are making the Mossad look like angels and Iranians look horrible, I never would have even taken the part. But that was part of the reason why I was so interested in playing this, is that they're showing everybody, they're showing everyone's humanity and their flaws on both sides, you know?
Yeah. Do you feel that there's been a really, I mean, speaking of that, I've noticed there's been a surge of kind of Israeli created shows the last few years with Fauda and Turan, obviously. And was Fauda a big impact for you to take on this role, do you feel?
No, Fauda, I actually didn't know about Fauda until I had to audition for this role. So that's when I watched Fauda to see the tone of the types of shows that they create, so that I could kind of mold myself and my work into that tone. And thank goodness I got the part. So yeah.
What was your audition like originally? I
Mm.
understand that you
Oh my
knew you were.
God, she was so different. I feel like she was very different than what we ended up doing. She was very still and very powerful, is my feeling of it. And she had a very strong sense of self, like a very strong sense of heaviness that is not me at all, me, Sheila. And so it became a little bit lighter for the actual, when I actually played Nahid for the show. So Nahid was a little more, a little lighter, a little bit more human, and had, moments where when she's happy, she's singing, and she's, yeah.
What was it like filming the series during, the whole COVID epidemic? I've spoken to a lot of actors who've told me, I know for Better Call Saul, they said it was hell in the desert, so warm. I was wondering if it's, because I mean, Tran is a really close quarters kind of show. You can't really avoid or do social distancing or anything like that. So I was curious what that was like the last year. I mean, there's been a big gap since first season came out, I feel.
I think because of the fact that we got so many COVID tests, constantly we were getting COVID tests. It's impossible in, or at least what I know is of the scenes that I was doing with Glenn Close in my house, with 50 people in that house. It's impossible to do the 6 foot apart. And certainly we weren't wearing masks. All the crew were wearing masks, but as actors, we couldn't be. It was hot. It was hot. It was so hard. And yeah, and they did want us to wear masks when we weren't acting. And I felt like I would faint sometimes because of the clothes and the heat and the as I said, no air conditioning, and then to have to wear a mask on top of it was hard. But I am so fortunate to be doing what I do that I would never complain about weather or, frivolous things like suffocating.
There's a moment that really stayed with me from this Friday's episode, and it's when you're kind of pushing on Faraz to wake up, and at first it really looks like he's dead. I mean, because they had that whole pill switcheroo in the previous episode. I was wondering what that was like. I mean, there's just something about that kind of, even though it was a fake out, it wasn't a real death. Something about the way you keep ask him to wake up and his eyes are still closed, and you keep going Faraz. It just.
I didn't know Nahid didn't know that it was real or not real. So
Yeah.
for Nahid, it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating. And so I just, thank goodness, was able to go into the devastation of that moment. And
Do you typically watch your own scenes after? I mean, you mentioned you haven't had a chance, but I know some actors say they don't like it because it kind of
it's,
not.
I can't stand watching myself. And I can't even stand my own voice. I mean, there are times where, maybe I call or somehow just by accident, I hear my voice on someone's machine and I'm like, ugh, how do people not cringe at that? What is that about? And it's very much the same when I see myself on film. Very, yeah, I had some cringy moments watching episode 2 and 1 and 3 of myself. It's hard. I don't know what it is. And then there's also rarely are you like, wow, that was good. Like I could watch anyone and be so amazed and inspired by their work. And I watch my own work and think, I should have done that differently. That should have been, so yeah, I'm
I think
very,
your voice is awesome. I like it's so instantly recognizable whenever you go like Faraz. I could spot it from a mile away without seeing you.
my voice.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm
It's so
sorry.
recognizable.